Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, sponsored by ACR Poker, where this weekend it's going down, guys. This Sunday, we've got not only the TPE free roll where you, yes you, can win your share of our $1,000 guaranteed free roll prize pool on Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, but also this weekend we are launching the official first ever Mystery Bounty Venom, a $2,650 buy-in with a guaranteed prize pool of at least $8 million. And that's not all. Also this Sunday, August 4th, on ACR Poker, you can play the first ever Venom PLO. That's right, Pot Limit Omaha, my favorite game. 6 max, by the way. The only way to play. And that tournament has a prize pool of at least $2 million guaranteed. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am in gorgeous, incredibly peaceful New York City, where I am very happy to be bringing you yet another episode of this longest running poker strategy podcast in the history of all mankind. And as I'm doing so, as we speak, the news is being released across the media that the World Series of Poker has been sold to NSUS, which is the parent company of GG Poker. Now, what does this mean for you? What does this mean for me? What does this mean to everyone? Well, probably not that much will change right off the bat. Caesars is still keeping kind of a preferential right to hold the World Series of Poker at their properties, so it is almost certain at this point that next year's WSOP will be in fabulous Las Vegas at the Horseshoe/Paris, unless something really wild happens in the next few weeks. Also, this deal, of course, is subject to all the usual regulatory governmental oversight, or do I? However, it is expected to clear by the end of the year, and then at that point, NSUS will be the owners of the WSOP and all of the intellectual property rights that come with that. So we don't have to see those annoying banners hanging in Vegas saying Caesars Entertainment, proud owner of the WSOP. No. It's GG now, baby. And this is something that has been going on for a while. Those of you who play on WSOP.com, which, as we know, they revamped and released a whole new software package in May of this year. On that site, you're actually playing on the 888 platform, the software of 888 Poker, and the World Series of Poker used to kind of have more of an affiliation with 888 Poker than it did with GG. That all changed during COVID when they had the big online international affair, and all of that was done on GG Poker. At the same time, around that same time, guys, you might remember, those of you who've been going to the series for a while will certainly remember how there used to be something called the Crazy Eights tournament, which was like 888 Poker, and there was a big kind of overlap between 888 and we have the software that WSOP is on and all that. Well, a few years ago, they got rid of the 888 tournament and changed it to Crazy Sevens or Lucky Sevens or whatever it is now. The signs were there, and they've been there for a while, guys. I have been hearing rumors about this type of merger, acquisition, some type of M&A activity going on between GG Poker and the WSOP for quite some time. Some people, of course, would shoot it down, saying, look, the WSOP is made in America. It's an American brand. The main tournaments happen in America, and GG Poker does not operate within the United States. Wink, wink. So for that reason, a lot of people felt like this would not happen. I never reported on it on this podcast before because I didn't really have concrete information, but I have talked to people who tend to know about these things who did whisper that this was in the works as much as 2 years, as far back as 2 years ago, guys. So I've been hearing about this, but now it is official. The companies have released their statements, the press releases, and now it's just up to the regulatory agencies to allow it or block it or what have you. It is certainly going to be big news internationally, where GG Poker is licensed and regulated in all of these foreign countries, just not here in the USA. So I think you'll be seeing in the coming years circuit events in Australia, in Canada, all over Europe, and wherever else. So very exciting. It doesn't seem like this deal is going to affect WSOP Online as it exists currently in the United States. Those few states that have it: New Jersey, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania. But Pennsylvania kind of has like its own little thing going on. They don't want to play nice with others. So I don't know. We'll see how it all shakes out. But obviously this is big news. It's probably good news for the game. I mean, the less attached to Caesars we are, the better. But at least for the time being, the tournaments in the States will be held at Caesars properties. But I think the real value here for GG is what they can do internationally, right? Like they recently announced that WSOP Paradise is again going to compete with the Wynn in December. So let's see what else GG can do with the brand now that they're taking ownership of the WSOP name and brand, how they can exploit that in other international markets. I think it's going to be very exciting, both online and live, for NSUS, parent company of GG Poker, and it could even mean an even bigger payday for its number one brand ambassador, my friend and yours, Daniel Negreanu. All right, enough about that. Let's move on. I want to talk about the hand that we reviewed last week from the Monster Stack that I played last month in fabulous Las Vegas. But this time I want to use my favorite software platform, GTO Wizard, to check the lines. Okay, this is much more than a solver. GTO Wizard actually released a brand new AI update that includes ICM post-flop solutions. This is a huge improvement to what I already thought was incredible software, but now you can study ICM solutions for any post-flop scenario instantly. You can plug in whether it's a PKO, a traditional bounty tournament, whether it's a normal tournament but you're just in the money or near the money. Mystery bounties are now supported, freeze-outs, satellites. Basically any type of common poker tournament format is now supported by GTO Wizard. So we are talking about the Monster Stack, and I've run this hand from last week through the solver, and I've got some very interesting output to share with you guys. Just to review, the blinds were 400, 800, with an 800 big blind ante, and I had 58,000. I opened to 1800 with pocket kings, and I was in the low jack position, got called by the hijack and nobody else. So I'm heads up out of position with pocket kings. The flop came 7-5 deuce with 2 hearts, and my cards were black. I checked, and then my opponent bet a little less than half the pot, and I called. Now again, this was the Monster Stack tournament. I had 70 big blinds, and my opponent had me covered. So let's talk about my first check. So having been the pre-flop raiser and gotten called by the player with worst relative position to my immediate left, I chose to check. And this is basically a pure check, a full range check. As I looked through the solver solution by GTO Wizard's very powerful artificial intelligence, I saw no real C-bets, not only with pocket kings, but with any hand. We almost never bet this flop. When we do bet, we usually have a set or a flush draw, but even then, you hardly ever want to do that. If you never ever do that, you won't really be giving up much in terms of exploitability, because even the solver does it less than 5% of the time. So I would just treat this as a range check. It's a low flop, 3 low cards, just check your full range. Now let's talk about my call. I checked, opponent bet about half pot, and I went for a call. We actually want to check raise this flop quite a bit with the 2 black kings. We actually only call 25% of the time, and mostly do a very small check raise, like just a hair over a click back. Like if opponent bets 3, we're supposed to check raise 7. So that really surprised me, because you just don't see the very small, like minimum check raise very often with any hand at this stack depth. But this is an exception, and I really can't figure out why. I suppose it's because we want to grab the lead in the hand maybe, but we really don't want to pay too much for the honor. We also don't want to lose our opponent when he has something like middle pair or like some back doors or whatever. And this little check raise would probably keep a lot of those hands in, for better or worse. Now, a lot of the solver work I did with GTO Wizard in the spring taught me that I need to be checking when I get called by a player who has position. So I didn't learn the part about check raising the minimum when I have the overpair. So I guess that must be another chapter that I haven't quite gotten to yet. But no, I'm just playing. I mean, this is kind of new to me, guys. Like last year, I would pretty much c-bet this board. I mean, I have an overpair. There are 2 hearts out there. I don't have any hearts. So why wouldn't I just bet to protect my hand and hope to get called by worse? No, we're supposed to be checking and calling, checking and raising the vast majority of the time when we get called by a player who is in position versus us. So I called here, but really the solver does prefer check raising. Now, it's not always a minimum. That's just the preferred sizing. There's some much bigger sizing mixed in there as well. But the way I played it, I check called, and then with 10,600 in the middle of the turn came the deuce of diamonds, which paired the board and added another flush draw. So with the board of 7-5 deuce deuce, 2 hearts and 2 diamonds, hero with 2 black kings, I once again checked. My opponent once again bet, this time putting 6K into the 10,600 pot, and I again went for the call. So I'm basically slow playing my overpair here. The wizard likes checking 35% of the time and bets the rest mostly tiny, though 50% of the time we're supposed to put in like 3 big blinds into the 16 big blind pot or whatever. So that's another surprise to me. A lot of turn bets tend to be on the larger size side. But yeah, this one, for whatever reason, we're just supposed to kind of put out a little tiny bet, and that's what the wizard does half the time. So checking is okay, 35%, tiny bet 50%, and then larger sizing the rest. So I checked, and it looks like the wizard does not like my play after the bet. When we check, it's to check raise and try to get the whole stack in. The wizard check raise is huge on this, puts in half the stack most of the time, and then about 12% of the time just goes for the gigantic check shove. Remember, we start this hand with over 70 big blinds. So to get all in with one pair seems kind of wild to me, but I guess it's such a good board for us, and there's so many available draws, that this is the GTO strategy. I was shocked, and even more shocking is the fact that we're never supposed to check call on 4th Street. When we check, it's to check raise and check raise only. So the wizard hates my call. On the turn, we're either supposed to bet tiny or check and then pounce, but not continue the slow play. I can see why this makes sense. We don't have hearts and diamonds, and those are the flush draws that are currently available. We have an overpair on a board that is still 7 high. We want to make those draws pay through the nose, or possibly even get called by another overpair like pocket 8s or something, which would be great, because in that scenario we are in unbelievable shape to double up with 1 card to come. It all makes sense. Once GTO Wizard tells me what I should have done, it all becomes clear. If only I could think of this stuff in real time while I'm playing. Anyway, I did check call, and then with 22-6 in the middle, the river came the queen of diamonds, completing the backdoor flush draw. I checked once again, opponent bet half pot again, and I called again, and won a very nice pot versus King 5. Now, the wizard never has my hand, guys, because we would be checking on the turn with the intention of shoving. So the wizard never has exactly what I had, 2 black kings, on a check call line on 4th Street. But the other king-king combos that are available are all pure checks on this river. But to be fair, there are hardly any left because at some point, all those other pocket kings would mostly have taken the lead in the hand. So this is a very low frequency play to get to this point with any combination of 2 kings. We don't fold to the river bet with any pocket king combo other than king of hearts, king of diamonds. I think it has to do with the heart draw and the diamond draw out there. Those are the hands that you want your opponents to have. So the wizard is folding when it blocks both flush draws, but really even then, less than 5% of the time. Even when you do have both of the red kings, we're still not folding more than 5% of the time, even with those nightmare cards. Anyway, this is fascinating to me. It's a 90% call with the rare pocket kings to get to this point. You're going to call 90% and shove the rest. So I'm seeing now that maybe I'm underrating how good of a hand one pair is. I mean, I think when I have 70, 80 big blinds, I'm usually trying to pot control, not get the whole stack in. I mean, a flush came in, for crying out loud. I guess I worry about that too much. I mean, I have a lot more studying to do if I'm really going to be able to analyze this. But guys, the real point is GTO Wizard likes me checking to the caller, but then at some point I'm supposed to step on the gas, which I never did. However, I think I end up winning a bigger pot in this particular instance, not to be results oriented, but still, because my opponent happened to have King 5, which he's actually never, ever, ever supposed to have. All right, let's move on. I don't have a whole lot of time tonight, and we did spend a bit of time on that merger news, but let's talk about another hand we didn't get to before. This is from that Wynn Century PKO tournament, a $1,600 buy-in where the final 100 players switched from normal tournament play to PKO play. And let's see if it's possible that I was too passive in this hand, or did I pick a good spot to ramp up my aggressiveness just a little bit. At this point in the tournament, the blinds were 2K and 3K with a 3K big blind ante, and the average stack was 130, and I only had 70. So I wasn't doing particularly well with my 23 big blinds or whatever that is. A foreign player, maybe from India or Sri Lanka, like somewhere in that part of the world, raised to 6K from middle position. The small blind called, and Hero is now in the big blind holding the king of diamonds, 4 of diamonds. So is this a snap defend? Do we ever want to shove with this hand? Is this a good hand for me to go for a big squeeze play with my 23 big blind stack? There's already 18,000 in the middle, and I have only 70,000 in my stack. So maybe there is some merit to that play. You know, just lay about 4-1, try to take it down. And if you don't, you have king 4 suited. And as I always say, you're never drawing dead before the flop. But I chose to just go the conservative route and just make the call. I flicked in 3,000 more chips, and we saw the flop, which was 10 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, 5 of clubs. 10-7-5 with 2 diamonds, and Hero with the king of diamonds, 4 of diamonds. I've got a flush draw and an overcard and some extremely unlikely backdoor straight possibilities. The small blind checked to me, and now, you know, do I ever want to lead here into 2 opponents? I mean, this is definitely the type of hand that I can bet big and then call a shove with. But when that happens, guys, I think I'm usually behind and really need to hit at least a king, if not a diamond, in order to catch up. So I don't know if that's a great play in light of such short stack depth. So I decided to check, and the original raiser bet 7,000 into the pot of 21,000. And the small blind called. So the action's on me. How do you want to play your flush draw at this point? There's 35,000 in the middle, and we have just another 64,000 in our stack. So do we want to just call and see a favorable turn card? Maybe go for the check call lead? I don't know. The small blind calling kind of complicates matters for me. I feel like when the small blind calls, he only has 3 possible hands. He's got a 10, or a monster like a set of 5s, or a flush draw of his own, which could very well be worse than mine, and almost always will. So I feel like when he calls, I really only have to fade pocket 5s and pocket 7s, and I could pretty much get rid of him. And then it's just a matter of, does the original raiser actually have a hand that he wants to put in a lot of chips with? Now, our opponents both have about the average stack when this little adventure begins. I think the original raiser had about 150 and the small blind about 120. The average was around 130. We, of course, have the short stack with only 70K to start the hand. I just decided to go all in, guys. You know, this feels like a perfect spot for me to semi-bluff. Some percentage of the time, nobody's going to mess with me. Of course, they know I could have the type of hand I have, a flush draw, but I would definitely play a set of 5s or a set of 7s this exact way. I probably would have tried to get all in pre-flop with pocket 10, so that one's kind of eliminated. I would also play pocket aces this way. Remember, under 25 big blinds, you do want to slow play your pocket aces some of the time. So with all that in mind, I decided to just stick it in and go for broke. The original raiser folded quickly, and the small blind called me with ace 10. His hand held up as he faded my 12 out draw, and I was sent to the rail. That happened quite a bit this summer, as if you've been listening to recent episodes, you already know. And that will do it for this episode. Sure hope to see some of you this Sunday on ACR Poker. And you can follow me on twitch.tv/Clayton Comic with whole cards up, and you can see all the mistakes I consistently make on just a 5-minute delay. And so for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, with special thanks to our very generous sponsor, ACR Poker, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas, please. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart.